Okay, this is a book review. Here's the book, The Light Doctor by Dr. Martin Moore-Eady. This is Dr. Martin Moore-Eady. It's a good book, and he basically is called The Light Doctor. He did some great research. He's got a chance to win a Nobel Prize. He's the one who figured out that the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus is the master clock of the body to run all your circadian rhythms. Okay, so the story on him is he was an MD. He was an MD in a surgery residency, and he kept falling asleep in the cases, getting yelled at because he was tired from being post-call. So he dropped out of surgical residency and did a fellowship. Did a PhD in studying the physiology of sleep and circadian rhythms. And he was a Harvard professor there for a long time, like around 30 years, something like that. Okay, so some of the things he talks about is that we're made, our body, as far as our brain is concerned, the only thing that matters is blue light. And blue light means it's daytime. We got photoreceptors in our eyes that don't even see pictures. All they see is blue light, yes or no. And they send a message to the brain that it's daytime. Blue light means daytime. And blue light is good for us during the daytime. This is a painting, The Three Riches by the Limbourg brothers from 1416. And basically, this is what humans have done for a long time. We're made to walk around in extended family groups outside looking for food or planting food, that sort of thing. And we're used to seeing blue light all day long, very intense light. And then when it's dark, going to sleep. The blue light in the morning, it's most important to get that sunshine in the morning. It helps to set your circadian rhythms. Women who spend more time in the sun, they'll get more skin cancers, but they're seldom fatal. And they live significantly longer than women who get less sun. This is from Dr. Martin Moore. And patients, if you have patients on the same diseases on both sides of the hospital, one where the light shines in the room and they have access to it versus where they don't. The ones on the side where they get more sunlight, they heal faster. Okay, maybe improving mitochondrial function, better circadian rhythms, or sleeping better. You heal especially during your sleep. So blue light's good for you in the daytime, but it's bad for you at night when your circadian rhythm should have it turned off. So artificial indoor blue light. The rods and cones of our eyes, that's what we see with. The rods are black and white vision, peripheral vision for motion sensors. The color vision is binocular, stereoscopic vision with both our eyes. We can look at something, have depth perception. But you got these guys in here, they're called IPRGCs. And what that means is they're intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells that detect blue light, okay? And it's especially in the range of about 460 to 490 nanometers. And that tells you if it's day or night. Okay, here's our circadian rhythms. The basic idea of it is that, you wake up in the morning, that's when you're like smartest. It's right when you first wake up. Why does a person have to be smart when they wake up? So they can go find food. The first meal of the day is called break fast. You break your fast. You've been fasting for a while. Okay, at night, the brain is the only time the brain can go offline. That's when the brain cleans itself through something called the glymphatic system. The spaces around the brain parenchyma, they're called perivascular spaces of Virchow-Robin. They open up, cerebral spinal fluid washes over the neurons, the brain cells. The brain cells pump out their waste products. And, like Victorians throwing their chamber pot feces and whatnot into the street. And hopefully it'll get rinsed away by the rain. And that's essentially what the brain cells do. So when you wake up in the morning, all your brain cells have been cleaned and they're ready to go. You're as smart as you're going to get. They describe maximum alertness as around 10 o'clock in the morning. But, I know from experience, as soon as you wake up in the morning, you want to do the most difficult intellectual thing you have to do and spend your whole morning. I consider the morning brain time. Like, let's say I have a day off. I always do whatever's the most challenging thing for me first in the morning. And I'm usually pretty good, until about 2 o'clock. You gradually start fading a little bit. You get a little bit dumber. I consider the afternoon body time. I've most of my youthful life I was a wrestler, and we always had wrestling practice in the afternoon. They say you're physically strongest around 5 o'clock, so that's a good time for you to get your personal rep maximum for lifting weights. And then the evening is sort of like social time and gut time. You eat your dinner, chat with your friends and family, go to bed. One big thing emphasized in this book is you want to avoid blue light after 9 p.m. Because any blue light after 9 p.m., it blocks the circadian rhythm normal circuitry because we're used to being totally dark at night, and it'll decrease the melatonin production. So the message from your photoreceptors in your retinal ganglion cells gets sent to your suprachiasmatic nucleus in your hypothalamus, And then it tells the pineal gland to make melatonin, which is part of sending a signal to the whole rest of the body to go to sleep. Okay? The early sleep is deep slow wave sleep, and that's the deepest sleep, the most restorative sleep, the most important sleep to get. Towards the morning, as it gets earlier in the morning, that's REM sleep, rapid eye movement when you're dreaming and things like that. Okay, here's a little bit more detailed picture of this idea of circadian rhythms. So the eye has the retinal ganglion photoreceptors for just sensing blue light. When it senses blue light, that means it's daytime. Sends a message to the SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus. This guy, Dr. Martin Moore, he's the one who figured this thing out, that the suprachiasmatic nucleus is the master clock of the human body. So that's a pretty big discovery. That's what he might get a Nobel Prize for someday. At night, when you're outdoors, it gets dark, there's no blue light. So the absence of blue light, SCN tells the pineal gland make melatonin. Okay, and the melatonin travels all over the body, telling everybody it's nighttime, so do whatever you do at nighttime. That's what your circadian rhythms are all about. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus is a little bit like the conductor of the show to make sure everything is functioning as it should. Like we talked about the brain cells at night, that's when they go offline, that's when they pump out their waste products. They can't go offline in the daytime because you need your brain to think while you're moving, okay? They need precise neuronal gradients, electrolyte gradients, so they can't be doing that in the daytime. Okay, in the morning, that's when you got to be smart. We talked about that. And there's other processes in the body that correspond to your circadian rhythm, and so the melatonin going around, synchronizing the clock, that's needed for optimal function. Okay, another point he makes is that only blue light penetrates deep into the ocean. So here's an example of how deep light penetrates. So the blue wavelength, the visible light, let's say around 480 nanometers, it goes all the way deep, deep, deep into the ocean, beyond 200 meters deep. Okay, these other forms of light, they don't go so deep. So the deeper forms of life, and it's thought a lot of early life sort of arose in the deep oceans, it was always dependent on blue light for knowing what is daytime. Okay? And, according to Martin Moore, he thinks that gave a survival advantage to the creatures who would be able to take advantage of the time of light, in a sense, sense it as early as possible, to be able to obtain their food and be less likely to be vulnerable to predation. And it's also the case that the same sky blue that penetrates deepest into the water is the sky blue that we see when we're on land. So an animal like an amphibian or something that was both in water and on land would be detecting essentially the same type of blue light. Okay, here's a big graph of the electromagnetic spectrum, and we don't need to know all this, but just so you're aware, this is where it fits in. Here's the visible light. So the visible light, when you start getting into the longer wavelengths, that's infrared. Shorter wavelengths, that's ultraviolet. So the shorter wavelengths are higher energy. They're more able to do damage, like ultraviolet light can cause a sunburn, whereas infrared's not that big of a deal. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so here's a visible light, and the key thing to know is the blue light spectrum, 440 to 485. You can call it sky blue, 450 to 495. It's right in the upper 400s, and so that's the one our circadian rhythms are set by. And this is pretty much the main thing the brain cares about, the only thing the brain cares about in terms of its circadian clocks. When you get to the other far side of the violet, then you're an ultraviolet light. You get to the far side of red, then you're an infrared light. I got the page numbers to the book here, so that means page 172, LD is light doctor. I like to put page numbers in there in case I go back to it or anybody else wants to. There it is. Okay, so here now there's a few additional things on here. Oh, this just includes that. Oops, it keeps grabbing the picture instead of grabbing me. This is just telling you next to red is infrared. And there's thought to be some beneficial aspects of infrared. Maybe it even improves mitochondrial function a little bit. And here's ultraviolet next to violet. So that's the electromagnetic spectrum. The wavelengths are measured in nanometers. Excuse me. Okay. So here's what happens with the different types of light bulbs. A quick general overview is that incandescent lights, the old-fashioned Thomas Edison light bulbs, very little blue. Halogen lights, very little blue. And that's good at nighttime. Whereas the modern LED lights, they're much more energy efficient, and that's partly why they're sold in such high quantities, but they tend to have lots of blue in them, which is not good for you at night. You want to avoid all that. Oh, one thing I did was I got a pair of these blue blockers. I have a friend who's bringing them to me. And you want to get the ones that are thickly tinted. Those are the ones that are more likely to be real and to work. If they look relatively clear, like here's a pair somebody gave me, I think these are fake. He said that if they don't have tint on them, they're fake, according to Martin Moore Eady. Okay, see that? Not tinted, probably bogus. And what they're supposed to do is, like, see how this one's blocking that blue light? And that's where you want them to block, like around 440 to 495 nanometers. And you want to put them on 3 hours before going to bed, because that's when your melatonin starts ramping up. Okay, and he claims that if a person's wearing a pair that works, that if they have problems with insulin sensitivity and sleeping, it's a good chance it'll help that. But it'll probably take a week to notice the effects. Okay, here's just a little hint of the different types of amount of intensity of light. So direct sunlight is super intense. You can get, lux is the unit measurement of light intensity, how bright it is. So direct sunlight can be like 100,000 lux, whereas indoor light can be like 50 lux. So let's call it 100. It's still orders and orders of magnitude much higher with direct sunlight than it is with indoor light. And humans tend to spend most of their life indoors because we only go outside about 10% of our time, if that much. Sunlight here, illumination, these are foot candles, these are lux, it's over 100,000 lux, okay, on a sunny day. At night, excuse me, let's say a dark night is like 0.0001 lux. So it's like hundreds of thousands of times difference between at night versus daytime. Versus if you're in, mild lighting, indoor lighting almost all day, you're sort of living in a twilight zone compared to the very bright sunshine of our ancestors and the very dark night of our ancestors. Okay, now here we're going to go into a little more information. Most important thing to get out of this whole talk is that you want to avoid blue light the last 3 hours before bedtime and reduce light intensity. You can dim the lights, use fewer lights. So I'm getting more meticulous about this. I turn off the big lights. I just use a little tiny low watt light bulb and a lamp at night because I really want to minimize all this. I want to optimize my sleep. And I know exercising gets me to sleep a lot better as well. You especially want to minimize light the last 3 hours before going to bed because that enables your melatonin to go higher. That'll help you to sleep better. And the melatonin does all kinds of good things. It's a hormone that travels around your body to let all the cells know that it's nighttime, so to do what they're supposed to do at nighttime. It gives you better circadian rhythms. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is, in a sense, like running an orchestra centrally. Okay, a white light coming from the source, you can put it through a prism, and it's a whole bunch of different, colors of the rainbow, so to speak. And in the day, you need the blue light, but blue light at night is toxic because your body thinks it's daytime, and then you're not going to sleep as well, and it disrupts your circadian rhythms. Dr. Martin Moore says, for many thousands of generations, we had very bright sunlight in the daytime and a very dark sleeping place at night, and we're designed for that. Intensity of light is measured in lux. A sunny day is about 60 lux, 60K lux, and an overcast day about 10K lux. Night's about 0.0001 lux, so there's a big gap. He says that we now often spend about 90% of our waking hours or more in mild amounts of light, sort of like we're living in a twilight. Okay, talking about the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, IPRGCs, that don't send images. He actually, Dr. Moore Eady, he thinks that we should, that if you buy a blue ED light on the package, he says there should be something that says may be harmful if used at night, like a warning label. The ideal light first thing in the morning is, nice bright sunlight to kind of get you going. And then at night, though, you want no blue light. You want a blue-free night. And if you can't get blue-free, just minimize it as best you can, especially the last couple hours before going to bed. Okay, orange to red are the best colors for light late in the evening. If you have an alarm clock, you want the letters on it to be red rather than blue. Okay. I've also read if the light's coming not from Martin Moore but from someone else from directly over your head, then that's more like sunlight and it has a more effect on you. Red and infrared red light. Red photons penetrate more deeply than other lower wavelength photons. The red at 650 nanometers might help regrow thinning hair. Red at 660 nanometers stimulates mitochondria, and the retina can improve vision in people who have some problems. It appears to accelerate wound healing after surgery or radiation. Infrared photons penetrate much more deeply than red and other visible light and can even go into the skull and the brain. This has led to photobiomodulation research for attempted treatment of brain disorders. Okay, this is just showing the opposite relationships of cortisol and melatonin. So cortisol is the wake-up hormone. It's also the, for fight or flight, for stress. So it's going to elevate your blood glucose, elevate your blood lipids, perk you up, so to speak, versus melatonin, is a little bit associated with making you sleepy. It's an antioxidant. It's better for immune function. So your immune function in general functions better at night while you're sleeping. Your cortisol, like I said, you need that when you're awake. In the morning to get your blood glucose up so you can go get some food. But, when you're stressed out, so you'll have the energy to do whatever you got to do. Run, fight or flight, fear for your life. Okay, here's something about night shifts. You don't want to work the night shift. Night shift people have a lot of health problems. Women in particular will have 50% more breast cancer than the other women of their country. And women in countries with, fully developed electricity, they spend a lot more time looking at these bright lights at night. And they have about a 50% increased incidence of breast cancer. In countries where they never had any electrical light, like sub-Saharan Africa, or women who are blind, they have a significantly lower incidence of breast cancer. Blue light at night also increases the risk of male prostate cancer. And okay, 50% higher in women who work the night shift. Iceland was relatively late to use electricity, and as they started using electricity, the incidence of breast cancer just went up, up, and up. Women who are blind before age 65 years of age have 50% lower rate of breast cancer, because most blindness in Western countries occurs, when a person's really elderly, like from cataracts and other things. Nurses working night shifts in brightly lit areas have high rates of breast cancer. Rats in cages implanted with human breast cancer cells, if the lights are left on, which suppresses melatonin production, there are tumor cells that grow faster. Overall, he says that it's safe to estimate that at least 50% of breast cancers are due to this excess of electric light. Okay, here we go. This is some different types of light. Circadian blue is about 440 to 495 nanometers, and if you see that at night, it'll disrupt your circadian rhythms. You'll have more obesity, diabetes, coronary artery disease, breast cancer, and prostate cancer. Firelight doesn't really have much blue in it, or does candlelight, 2 or 3%. So it has no significant effect on circadian rhythms. When you use incandescent blue lights, that's enough. It's still pretty minimal, but it's enough. There's a trace notice of it, 4%. Halogen lights, I don't have the exact numbers for that. Fluorescent lights, it can be a big difference. 14% increased risk. A 32-inch computer screen is about 100 lux. A sunny day is about 100,000 lux. And the point of it is that it's the outdoor sun that's really got the power more than this indoor stuff. LED lights, 6,200 K series, they got 25% of the light is blue light. So that can be a little harsh on you. LEDs were introduced around 2013. Okay, blue light's is only toxic at night, not in the daytime. Spectral engineering can make lights with zero blue in them. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. There are ways to sort of work around this. Oh, risk factors for cancer. Yeah, if you're sleep deprived, if you're working the night shifts, if you have excess of blue light. So for men and for women. For women, more breast cancer. For men, more prostate cancer if they're sleep deprived for those reasons. Excessive stress, tobacco, sedentary, animal protein, things that put high fat in your blood, things that disrupt the glycocalyx of the gut lining and of the endothelial cells. Being fat. All right, so here's melatonin, and I describe melatonin as being like the Greek goddess of night. Her name is Nyx. Okay, she rides around on her chariot. Excuse me. Melatonin increases at night after dark. A lack of blue light is perceived by the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It tells the pineal gland to make melatonin, and that melatonin is released into the blood. It increases sleep. It's an antioxidant, decreases the risk of cancer growth, so it improves immune function. I said it's like the Greek goddess of night, travels around the body to tell them it's all nighttime to synchronize the clocks. Keeps all cells tuned. To me, it's a personal weight. Worker females are all off limits romantically, and conversation with them is always, what is this all about? It's always brief, entirely transactional. Oh, I'm kind of joking here, that the goddess of night is a female, okay? The goddess of daytime. Well, Aurora brings the dawn in, and then Apollo is a sun god, and later on Helios took over the sun chariot. So I was just trying to make some stupid joke that it makes sense to me that the goddess of night is a woman and the goddess of day is a man. Because in the day I work with men and talk to men. At night, as I'm always talking to a woman. Well, we're not going to go any further with that one. Okay, here is a painting of Apollo, the sun god, driving his chariot. Later it was taken over by Helios. And there's Aurora, the goddess of dawn. And these are the ancient Greek gods. Cortisol is both a get up and go hormone and a get moving hormone, like for stress. Hormone of stress increases blood glucose, so you got more energy, increases glutamate transmission in the brain. So it's sort of like the opposite of melatonin. You know, when one's up, the other one's down. And this is sort of like circadian lighting, designed for progressively less blue light as the evening. So you can get some, these are more expensive, and you got a special order them. I tried looking on Amazon, I couldn't find them. But it's a light that will be blue in the morning to help you set your circadian rhythm. And then as the day goes by, it gets more sort of orange and reddish, you know, with less and less till eventually no blue in the later part of the evening. Okay, and you know, these sound great, but there just hasn't been enough demand for them to become that widespread. So this is again this idea of circadian lighting for a house, whereby it'll be blue in the morning, part of wake up, get your circadian rhythm set, and then at night sort of reddish. Like if you have an alarm clock, it's better to have a red alarm clock, the lettering on it, compared to blue. You don't want blue; it kind of wakes you up. I got a little blue thing on the stove. I just put tape over it. I don't want to see it. In the morning, this is the kind of light you want, like an LED light with a lot of blue. That perks you up and wakes you up and tells your body it's daytime. And this is from the Chorus site that sells all these things. They sell all these lights. They're one of the companies that make them, and he recommends that company. He says they're good. So, you know, what am I going to do from all this? I just want to get all the lights off, turn my computer off earlier, don't look at the cell phone at night, because you want to avoid this blue light, because it doesn't take a whole lot of it to decrease your melatonin, and you might not sleep as well. He did say it'll take maybe about a week or so before you notice the benefits of some of these light changes, but it's certainly worth doing. So here in the evening, they recommend minimize blue. It's okay to have a little bit of purple, they said early in the evening, but as the evening goes on, you want more of a light spectrum like this, with more red light and no blue, no purple. So anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting, because it's good to know. And it's gonna change my behavior. That's an important thing. If something's big enough to make you change your behavior, I'm gonna minimize all light at night. I bought some yellow sunblocker glasses for the blue light. These are a cheap pair somebody gave me that probably are bogus. And I'm just minimizing light. I have little low watt bulbs in the evening because I want to really optimize my sleep. So anyways, I hope you found that helpful.